Metathesis Lab Reaction A, hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide. We start with a solution of hydrochloric acid inside the test tube. Currently, that solution is at room temperature. To help us visualize the actual reaction a little bit better, we're going to add a drop of a solution called universal indicator. This is a solution containing a mixture of various acid-base indicators which will change color depending on the pH of the solution. So please note the color of the solution with the indicator. Now to this, we are going to start adding the sodium hydroxide. As I add more sodium hydroxide, you should eventually see clear evidence of a reaction thanks to the indicator. Now, as more evidence that a reaction has occurred, if we check the temperature again, we find that the temperature is significantly increasing. Another sign that a reaction has occurred in this mixture. So once again, that is reaction A, hydrochloric acid, and sodium hydroxide. Metathesis Lab Reaction B, calcium carbonate and hydrochloric acid. We start off with some solid calcium carbonate inside our test tube. To that, we will add our hydrochloric acid. Notice immediate evidence of a chemical reaction. Metathesis Lab Reaction C, ammonium chloride and sodium hydroxide. We start with solid ammonium chloride in our test tube. I then add just a little bit of water to start to dissolve the ammonium chloride. I then will add the sodium hydroxide solution. There's not a lot of clear evidence yet that a reaction is occurring, but if I check the temperature, if you recall, our room temperature in reaction A was around 24 degrees Celsius. If you look at the temperature of this solution now, we see as the reaction occurs, the temperature is dropping. So that change in temperature is one sign of the chemical reaction. Another piece of evidence that a reaction is occurring can be used by taking some red litmus paper, wetting it with a little deionized water, and then placing that on top of the tube. Very quickly, if I look at the paper on top of the tube, notice that it is starting to turn blue. That is evidence that a basic gas is being generated by our reaction. What you cannot tell on this video is that gas has a distinct odor. It's got a mild odor of ammonia. So once again, that's reaction C, ammonium chloride and sodium hydroxide. Metathesis Lab Reaction D, iron 3 nitrate and sodium hydroxide. We start with a solution of iron 3 nitrate in our test tube. To that, we start adding our sodium hydroxide solution. So that's reaction D, iron 3 nitrate, and sodium hydroxide. Metathesis Lab Reaction E, iron 3 nitrate and cobalt 2 chloride. Our tube initially again contains iron 3 nitrate solution. We will add a solution of cobalt 2 nitrate. Once again, that's reaction E, iron 3 nitrate and cobalt 2 chloride. Metathesis Lab Reaction F, cobalt 2 chloride and silver nitrate. The test tube is first filled with a solution of cobalt 2 chloride. We next add our solution of silver nitrate. Once again, that's reaction F. Metathesis Lab Reaction G, sodium carbonate and silver nitrate. The first solution in the test tube is the sodium carbonate. Next, we add our silver nitrate solution. Once again, that is reaction G, sodium carbonate and silver nitrate. Reaction H, Metathesis Lab, sodium carbonate and copper 2 sulfate. We start with sodium carbonate in the test tube. Next, the copper sulfate is added. That is reaction H, sodium carbonate and copper 2 sulfate. Metathesis Lab Reaction I, barium chloride and copper 2 sulfate. Test tube contains our barium chloride solution. Now we add our copper 2 sulfate. That is reaction I, barium chloride and copper 2 sulfate. Metathesis Lab Reaction J, copper 2 sulfate and sodium phosphate. The test tube contains our solution of copper 2 sulfate. Next, we add our sodium phosphate. That is reaction J, copper 2 sulfate and sodium phosphate. And now our final reaction for the Metathesis Lab, reaction K, sodium phosphate and nickel 2 chloride. In the test tube is our sodium phosphate solution. Now we add our nickel 2 chloride solution. That is reaction K, sodium phosphate and nickel 2 chloride.